Good evening, everyone. On my bench today, sorry, it's been a while since I made a video, but I've been out for work for like a week or so, and then kind of got a little bit sick. Not COVID or anything like that, just a bunch of like drainage, mucus and whatnot. So I've been working on some stuff, but it hasn't really been too interesting. Most of it's just like cleaning consoles or stick drift on some joysticks. But on this one here, I don't know if you can read the label. On this one it says bad HDMI, not formatted. Don't worry about the not formatted part. Yeah, bad HDMI. And I've kind of already tested it. I don't know if you'll really be able to see it too well. But yeah, some of those pins on that port are a little bit bad. It does power up, green light, so it is booting properly. It's just, yeah, no video on the HDMI port. So it should be fairly easy comparatively to something like the PS4, which has a lot of like surface mount pins. The PS3 uses an HDMI port that has through hole, so it should be a little bit easier. Got the replacement here. So let's go ahead and crack this sucker open. It's not too hard to get it open. You got a bunch of Phillips screws here, 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 and then there's some T8 Torx bit screws on the fronts up here. I think there's 4. Yeah, so 4. So give me just a few. Actually, I'm not going to speed through it. I'm just going to cut to me pulling the lid off. So we'll cut now. All right, quick little cut here. Screws are all out of the bottom. Flip it over. Pull back on the back side and up out, and there we go. We're in like Flynn, as Dave Jones likes to say. Once we're inside, we're gonna go ahead and take off the plugs for the AC in, as well as this little 5-volt and AC connector over here, detecting connector, whatever the hell it is, and then take out these 2 screws. Bam, nice and easy. Little trick on this one, the connector for the 12-volt power rail is over here towards the middle. It's 2 little nice long prongs that go up in here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grip it from the left side and tilt it up slightly so I can get my fingers underneath this little lip here. Grip it on the left side and pull up on the left, rocking back and forth. So it kind of looks like this motion, and it comes right out. Not that severe, just slightly rocking it so it comes out. It's actually more towards the left edge there. So once we're in here, also going to take out the AC connector because since I'm taking this thing completely apart, as I do for all my PlayStations that I work on, it's going to get new thermal paste. I'm going to clean off the rollers in the Blu-ray drive and wipe down the laser. I haven't tested the laser, but the only thing that I know about this so far is HDMI. So let me just go ahead and pull this off. 1 screw right here. Speed through this. There's another screw over the Blu-ray drive player. I'm gonna rotate just so a little better, easier working over here. 3 ribbon, flat ribbon connectors over here. And then, oh, I forgot the 2 screws on the back of the Blu-ray drive. And there we go. This lifts right up. A little bit of clips in the front if it does get caught. There we go. Now the reason why you need to take that off before you take off the Blu-ray player, 1 more screw. The reason why you take it off before you try and rip out the Blu-ray player is because the ribbon cable to the laser is still connected to the motherboard and the laser at the same time. So I will unhook the flap for that, and this comes right out. Before it comes out though, just looking at the wheels look pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and move the camera down to a different angle and just kind of show you an easy way to clean the roller wheels on the PlayStation 3. Okay, a little bit of a different angle. I'm going to grab the little spindle thing that is in the Blu-ray drive. stick it over here in the corner where it's supposed to go. Grab a cotton bud, Q-tip, whatever you want to call it, from my drawer. A little bit of isopropyl alcohol on one end, and then using the spindle, I'm going to rotate it, and you can see it's rotating the wheels. It is rotating those wheels, and I'm just gonna stick the Q-tip in there on one edge and rotate it on both of them. Try and get down in there if you can. It should come out looking a little bit black like that. And the other ones on the other side, on this side, these don't move. So just a quick wipe. This is more just a, the disc will kind of be stationary when it's pressed up against it. Do I have a disc? I do. So whenever a disc slides in like this, these don't really move or anything. They're just there to provide like a spring contact against the disc over to these, and then these will slide, and these over here are what's actually pulling the disc in. These just provide a stop force on the other side. That's it for that. It's not too bad. The laser looks nice and clean too, so I'm not really worried about that at all. Move this off to the side. I don't want to lose it. And then I've already unhooked the flap for the laser, so I'm not gonna have to do anything with that other than lift it straight out. And this is the 3000 model, so something they did a little bit different on these. On the 2000 models, there are two holes on both sides of the front here, and they're designed in a way so that they go in underneath the power eject module in the front. So you have to take this out, the power eject module, you have to lift it up before you can take the Blu-ray drive out. But on the 3000 models, they made it so the module, subboard thing, whatever, can be left in place and let the Blu-ray drive out. Just fiddling with that. Set that off to the side. I don't need to remove this or anything. It's not gonna be in the way of anything. Just unhook that ribbon cable there. Taking the hard drive out, I'm gonna take this ribbon cable out just so it doesn't get messed up or anything while I'm doing this. Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas over here in this corner. Just unhooking those, and then they will get fished out, the little hooks there. And that one. All right, and then there's 3 screws, 3 black ones holding it in, and then 2 silver ones over the hard drive, over here by the hard drive slot. So let me just go ahead and take these out. Nice and easy. And then an easy way to take this out, just like my personal preference, a little bit of dust here. I just grab it by the heatsink fan shroud thing, lift. You want to lift the front side up, and then once it's up and clearing the antennas and everything, you can pull it forward a little bit, because these connections in the back are they stick out slightly so that they'll go through the plastic case. This isn't too bad. Should brush off a little bit. Oh. All right, so now we got that out of the case. Flip it around, and there's a few more Phillips around the edges, and then of course the 2 clamps for the RSX and the APU. So let me just take these out. So all those screws are out, and then we'll just lift up over here because it's kind of slightly clipped in, and just lifts right out. Super easy. Now this is usually the most, let's say, dangerous part. about trying to work on a PS3. There is heatsink compound between the RSX and CPU's IHS to the heatsink. IHS is integrated heat spreader. It's just a block of copper. I think it's like nickel plated, or I think nickel plated copper. It's a block that goes between the actual die of the CPU to the heatsink. And the thermal paste between the IHS and the heatsink is almost always dried up. And sometimes it's going to be kind of difficult to separate the motherboard from the heatsink because that dried up CPU or a thermal paste kind of acts as a weak glue. But this one, I was just testing it and it just lifts right up. So I'm going to guess, oh, one thing I forgot. Fan. Unclip the fan connector. Oh, it's tight. It's super tight. Usually not this tight. There. This one's pretty easy. I'm almost gonna guess that there's not very good contact between the heatsink and them. And I mean, it looks actually pretty good. So I guess that's fine. Before I get to the HDMI port, let's just clean the thermal paste up. So cotton pad here. I usually dry first and then go to wet. Try and take out as much of the old thermal paste as you can while it's still dry, because I think it just makes it easier. This stuff isn't that bad. And then some isopropyl alcohol. Just wipe that down. And you'll see one of these starts to get a little bit darker. Darker, I don't know if I say darker. They start to get a little bit darker. It's just the aluminum. It builds up an oxide on it, and then as you start to wipe it down with isopropyl alcohol, I don't know, it makes this weird darker plated aluminum. It's just pulling off a bunch of oxide from the aluminum, I think. But I mean, it doesn't hurt it or anything like that. It still makes good thermal contact and sinks away heat, no problem. Push that off to the side. Same thing on here. Wipe off the old thermal paste. Not too bad. What's very weird is that thermal paste on this is slightly blue. It was like a light blue color. I don't know why. I've not seen light blue thermal paste on anything other than the PS3. All right, cool. That's easy. I'm not going to apply any thermal paste yet because I still need to replace the HDMI port. Oh, one quick thing. Let's just test the voltage on this battery, because I'm probably going to forget later. It is 3 volts. So that's still fine. All right, flip the board back over, and then we've got the HDMI port right here, and I'm going to get the replacement back over here. They are the same. The 2000 and 2500 models have a different style HDMI port compared to the 3000 models. So I'm going to go ahead and change the camera angle, try and get you down a little bit closer to the HDMI port, and also get the camera a little bit out of my way, because I'm going to be using a combination of my soldering iron and the heat gun, just because there's a massive copper plane on the ground of the HDMI port. So give me just one sec. Okay, so I think that's a pretty good angle. I'm going to set my soldering iron to about 400. That should be okay. The hot air gun is set to 370-ish right now. Turn the fan up a little bit higher. And I'm going to start by just flowing in some leaded solder. Pronounce that O and L. Somewhere on my desk I had some solder. Some solder. There it is. I'm just going to flow some leaded solder on here because I want to try and mix that lead-free stuff with the leaded on the ground plane. Now this does not have to mix in there perfectly, I just want to get a glob on there, so when everything starts heating up, it will mix and then make it a little bit easier on these points. And then I'm just going to flood a bunch in between all the pins and stuff here. It does not matter whatsoever, because once we start heating this up, I want that glob there so that I can slide my soldering iron across it to combine it with the hot air from the gun and just try and work it out. So I'm going to speed through this so that way you don't have to hear the fan going. Okay, HDMI port is out. You see there's a little bit of there's a lot of glob of solder on there. I'm just gonna put some flux on here and use my soldering iron with some braid. Try and get up most, if not all, of this solder that's left on here. So let's just speed through this. I'm trying to clean these out. It doesn't really need to be cleaned out. I'm just trying to wick away most of it that I can. Okay, yeah, so I got most of it. I just wanted to clean up all of that excess solder, as much of the excess that I could, because I'm going to just use the hot air gun to flow the new ports into here, and it just makes it a little bit easier when I've got all the excess cleaned up to try and get it back in its spot. Because how I'm going to do it, I'll add some thermal paste to, or not paste, some flux to the pins there, and then I'm going to hold on to the HDMI port with my tweezers, like so, and just heat up the top. I'm going to do it, so you'll see it, but I'm going to heat up the top, well really it's the bottom of the board, and at the same time I'm going to slide this back up in there. So it'll go in pretty easy with all the excess solder that was in there, but it's a lot harder to clean up after you've already got all these pins going through. So add some new flux here, help it all flow, and then let's start heating this up. All right, that is in there, and it is flush. That's why I just lifted it up. Just looking at it on the back. So yeah, it's in there, it's flush and everything. I noticed, I lifted it up here, there's a glob over here on the back right here. I was having some issues getting this port in, and two things. One, I think that I should have flipped the board over and looked at the port on this side, because I think there's probably some solder sticking up from this side, and it was just making it difficult to get in there. But two, I definitely had the hot air gun set way too low. This is a 370, probably should be a little bit higher. So that's in there. There's not a lot of solder before, so I'm just going to add some new ones, some new solder, new ones, some new solder to all of these points so that it is nice and strong and clean looking-ish. Got a little bit of a bridge on there. There we go. A little bit excess. This tip is not doing an amazing job. There we go. All right. Yep. So just flow solder into all of these pins. And you know, one thing we can do, I can do the little blob here, and then add some flux right down the center, just like that. And then just kind of swipe the soldering iron across all those pins. Right in the middle, on the sides, and it should get them all flowing perfectly fine. Just like that. Touch up this corner down here. All right. So I think that's good. And I'm gonna grab another cotton ball, cotton Q-tip, whatever. That's getting late, I'm getting tired. And just clean it all up. And you can kind of see, I don't know if you can see it on there, I got some spikes down here on that one. And this one. Those are the ground points. A little bit difficult for my soldering iron, soldering station. I should probably use maybe a little bit of a, I've got another like knife tip that I like to use. I switched over to this flattish one, angled one. I don't remember what for. Just inspecting those pins. I think they all look pretty gosh darn good. Yes. Actually, I've got two down here. That just looked a little bit bridged. All right, perfect. Zoom back out. Lift you back out. How's that angle? All right, all we're doing now is going to add some solder paste. Or not solder paste, my goodness, some thermal paste. I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people out there that are going to critique how I do this or say it's too much, it's too little, or, you know, you got to do a P or whatever. I've done dozens of these PS3s. The easiest way I found to do it. I'm not really worried too much about excess. The clamps get screwed down pretty tight and kind of squeeze out any excess, but I'm just going to do an X across each of these. And that is perfectly fine. It might be a little bit too much, but I'm not too worried about it. All right, I'm just gonna cut back to when I've got this thing. I'm gonna cut to when I've got this thing put back together. I'm sorry, it is getting really late. And my eyes are starting to get dry. I'm getting very tired and I'm kind of talking loopy. I'm just gonna cut back to me having this put back together, and then we'll boot it up and see if it's working. I'll have to go through the install setup process, so that'll be something I can do for this video. I'm sure there's some people out there that have never done it or are kind of curious about what they need to do once they install a new hard drive, because I had to replace the hard drive in this one. So just a quick cut. All right, back together. Mostly I didn't put the lid back on. I'm feeling kind of lazy. I'm probably gonna finish this video up tonight and then just go ahead and head to bed. But let's go ahead and power this on and see if we've got video output, and then we'll go through the setup process and test to make sure our game is working. So green light comes on. Let me turn this light off too. Green light up there, or down there. Nothing yet. It should be going in safe mode. It usually takes a minute. There it is. Not a minute, like 20 or 30 seconds. Show, we've got video output, but that doesn't mean necessarily it's working completely yet. Something about all of these systems that use HDMI is you can sometimes get lower resolution out of the HDMI ports, even with a damaged HDMI port. By that I mean, currently in safe mode, this should be running 480p. and you can have a damaged HDMI port and do 480p, but not 1080. So I'm just going to fast forward the process for installing the whatever the current firmware I have on my USB drive is right now. I think 4.86, maybe 4.87. But if you ever need to do this, say that you have a bad hard drive or you've decided to upgrade your hard drive to a larger size, all you need to do is Google PS3 official firmware or software update, download, find the full installation file, which should be, I want to say, a 300 meg-ish file. You'll download that, copy it over to a specific file structure that Sony lists on its website, which is something like PS3 and then update, and then the update file is called 3sp-updat.pub. It's update but no E, so updat. You'll copy that over to a FAT32 formatted thumb drive and then stick it into either USB port, and then using your controller over a USB cable, you can go through this process. So I'm just going to fast forward installing this firmware and everything. It'll take, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes. So I'll just, maybe I won't fast forward, I'll just cut through it to it booting up. There we go, all through the install process, booting up, and we're about to get to the real test. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Do you think the HDMI port was soldered in correctly and everything's working? I am gonna say yes. So switch over to 1080p. Yes, it does. Central time. It is August 5th, 8th. Wow, I'm way off. 2021 when I'm making this video, and currently 11 o'clock at night. Actually, exactly 11 o'clock at night. There we go. Let's ask for Wi-Fi. I'm not going to set up my internet connection, or Wi-Fi, I mean. So yep, it is 1080p, 60 FPS right now, or 60 hertz refresh rate, whatever. As you can see, no issues on the video here. Sometimes I've seen things where like you can have an HDMI port that looks okay, but you'll get weird glitches on the screen. I've seen it on the Xbox One, where I'll get mostly good, how do I say this? Mostly good video signal from it, and the screen will look fine, except for like one specific color will look really janky. I think there was an Xbox One I did, Xbox One X, the HDMI remixer chip, whatever it was bad. I replaced it. Oh no, it was bad, and the way it was working was blacks were coming in as like green. So just really strange. I'm gonna grab a disc, and we're just gonna pop this in and see if it loads up, make sure the Blu-ray drive's working. Slides in nice and easy. The disc sounds like it's spinning properly. Should load. There it is, Black Ops 2. And I would say this is a working system. So I'm not going to bore with you with me playing a game or anything. Usually if it loads the disc and starts loading up the game and everything, everything's perfectly fine. If it was a bad Blu-ray drive, it wouldn't have recognized the disc at all. It would have just spun for a second and then stopped, spun for a second and stopped. But it is working. HDMI port is good to go. Hopefully this was informative and helpful to some of you out there that get a bad HDMI port. It is easier to replace on the PlayStation 3s compared to the PlayStation 4. So if you're worried about not being able to do it yourself, you probably can. I mean, I have some tools that definitely help. Hot air station helps a lot, and a soldering iron definitely helps a lot. And if you feel like you can't do something like this because you don't have the tools, I mean, it's pretty cheap to get someone to do it off of like eBay. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up here. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Hopefully this was a good one. Like I said, I'm really tired. I'm rambling on a little bit, but you all have a great rest of your night and take care.